Evening, guys. I want to share with you from Hebrews 11, verse 23 to 28. It reads, "It was by faith that Moses' parents hid him for 3 months when he was born. They saw that God had given them an unusual child, and they were not afraid to disobey the king's command. It was by faith that Moses, when he grew up, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter. He chose to share the oppression of God's people instead of enjoying the fleeting pleasures of sin. He thought it was better to suffer for the sake of Christ than to own the treasures of Egypt, for he was looking ahead to his great reward. It was by faith that Moses left the land of Egypt, not fearing the king's anger. He kept right on going because he kept his eyes on the one who is invisible. It was by faith that Moses commanded the people of Israel to keep the Passover and to sprinkle blood on the doorposts, so that the angel of death would not kill their firstborn sons." And I see 4 main points from this here, where you got the faith to do what's right, you got the faith to ignore sin's pleasures, you've got the faith to endure, and you've got the faith to follow. Where you have the faith to do what is right, where you're not afraid of what others say, what other people may think of you as you try and live a life that's pleasing to the Lord. Romans 12 verses 1 to 2 comes to mind. It says, "And so, dear brothers and sisters, I plead with you to give your bodies to God because of all he has done for you. Let them be a living and holy sacrifice, the kind you will find acceptable. This is truly the way to worship him. Don't copy the behavior and customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. Then you will learn to know God's will for you, which is good and pleasing and perfect." And it's just a great reminder that we're to live lives that are pleasing to the Lord, not to other people, not even necessarily to ourselves, but that it's actually pleasing to the Lord, allowing him to change us in that. We don't change ourselves. We can think of, the power of positive thinking or 12 steps to a better person, and ultimately the power isn't within us. We can change our actions, but we can't really change who we are. And the Lord can do that. The Lord can transform us into new people, as he says. That he doesn't just change the actions, but he goes to the root of the situation, where he changes the root, which is the heart and the mind, so that then that affects us outwardly as well. And in changing us, we then not only know what's right, but we're given the power to be obedient when he renews us as we continue to allow him to transform us. We're also given the faith to ignore sin's pleasures, where we're looking to the treasures of Christ as greater than the pleasures of sin. Matthew 13 verse 44 comes to mind. It says, "The kingdom of heaven is like a treasure that a man discovered hidden in a field. In his excitement he hid it again and sold everything he owned to get enough money to buy the field." And you just see how when the man saw the treasure, it completely changed his outlook on the field. Beforehand, the field was just another field. But the moment he saw the treasures hidden within it, it was so much more than that. It revolutionized his outlook on that field. He knew that he had to have it, and losing everything was worth gaining the field. And when we see Christ, if we don't see how valuable the relationship with him is, if we don't see him for who he truly is, then he isn't really as inviting, and sin just seems like a fine trade-off. But when we truly know how valuable that relationship is, when we see Christ for who he truly is, then the pleasures of sin mean absolutely nothing when compared to the treasures that are hidden within Christ. Our outlook is completely changed, and we're willing then to forsake everything in order to gain Christ. We're willing to forsake the pleasures of sin as we look forward to the treasures that are hidden within Christ. The third thing that we see is the faith to endure, where we live a life set before us as we look to the invisible God. Times are going to be tough, but we can endure as we look to Christ. 2 Corinthians 4 verse 18 comes to mind. It says, "So we don't look at the troubles we can see now, rather we fix our gaze on things that cannot be seen. For the things we see now will soon be gone, but the things we cannot see will last forever." And troubles are going to come. Christ even says that troubles are going to come. But God gives us the faith to endure, not looking to the fleeting troubles that we see, but instead looking to the eternal God that we don't see. And in my own life, I continually have to remind myself how when I'm faced with troubles, that I then, instead of looking to those troubles and concentrating on those things, I instead look to God who is eternal and everlasting and who is with me. I remember a few years ago, I had really bad stomach pains, and it hurt a lot whenever I ate. And if you know me, you know I like to eat. So it was a big thing, and I'm like, this is gonna really be horrible if I have this for the rest of my life. And after several weeks of having it, the Lord healed it. But during that time, I had to set my outlook not on, oh no, this is going to really be horrible for the rest of my life, but instead setting my mind on Christ and having that joy that is within Christ, rather than my joy being in my circumstances, not letting my circumstances rob me of that joy. And like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, I can walk into the fire and not be burned because I know that my God is with me. I can say that man can touch my body, but God has my life in his hands. And it's easy to get overwhelmed and to feel like God wouldn't help, that it's too small, or to feel like not even involving God. It just doesn't even come to mind. It's such a big thing. And it's continually reminding ourselves that he's with us and he's going to bring us through our troubles. We just have to have faith in him. And then lastly, the thing there is the faith to follow. And it's the faith to be obedient and to follow what the Lord has called us to, even if we don't understand it necessarily. Isaiah 55 verses 8-9 says, "My thoughts are nothing like your thoughts, says the Lord, and my ways are far beyond anything you can imagine. For just as the heavens are higher than the earth, so my ways are higher than your ways, and my thoughts higher than your thoughts." And the Lord knows far more than us. And having knowledge of history, all of history, the present and the future, in every possible way we could possibly imagine, we know that he knows best. And like when I was a child with my parents, I just simply trusted that they knew best. I didn't have to question, because it was just, they know. I'll just follow in obedience, But similarly, we have to trust the creator of the universe, that he knows what's best for us, even if we don't necessarily understand. And even when we do understand, we need to have the faith to follow, knowing that he loves us and we want to follow in obedience out of our love for him. And by faith, we follow the Lord in what he has planned for us. When the Lord calls us forwards and he asks us to follow him, we then need to be obedient to his calling on our life. And so we need to have the faith to follow him. So my prayer for all of us tonight is that we would have the faith to do what is right, the faith to ignore sin's pleasures, the faith to endure, and the faith to follow.